Hi everyone, Bandanner here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this week's WARNO Dev Blog. Today we're getting our look at the 1st Division coming with Southag, the 1st Canadian Division. And we're going to be saying 1st Canadian and Division a lot in this dev blog by the looks of it. So the plan is to rattle through the 10 new divisions first, and then the plan is we will take a look at the 2 new Army General campaigns and the 4 operations after that. So that's the next however many weeks of dev blogs covered. So let's talk about the 1st Canadian Division. So with an illustrious and distinguished combat record, the 1st Canadian Division was raised as the 1st Canadian Infantry Division in 1914, participating in both world wars to much renown. In World War I, it fought at the battles of Ypres, Somme and Vimy Ridge. The infamous Passchendaele? Am I pronouncing that right? It's obviously French, I assume. And Amiens, which again is French. I'm not great at French. I don't remember very much of my French I learned at school. So, during the follow-up of World War II, the 1st Canadian Division was part of the Allied campaign in Italy, including the invasion of Sicily with battles in Ortona, the Italian Stalingrad, Liri Valley, and the Gothic Line. Relocated to northwestern Europe in the last months of the war, it helped to liberate the Netherlands as part of the 1st Canadian Army. After World War II, the 1st Canadian Division was reduced to a dormant skeleton headquarters. After World War II, the 1st Canadian Division was reduced to a dormant skeleton headquarters grouping, with a short revival in the mid-1950s before being fully disbanded in 1958. It was reactivated again at the tail end of the Cold War in 1988, consolidating the command of all Canadian land forces in West Germany. Oh, so it's pretty much everything. A little bit more about Canada's commitment to Europe's defence in the Cold War. From 1951, Canada's armed forces maintained an infantry brigade. For the greatest part of the Cold War, the 4th Canadian Mechanised Brigade Group, 4CMBG, in West Germany, subordinate to the British Army of the Rhine, that is in Southag's area of operations. This particular brigade was strong enough to be considered a light division by the British. However, in 1968, the new Canadian government slashed the military budget, reducing the forward deployed 4 CMBG strength. Another change was that the unit was redesignated to become a mere reserve formation for the US 8th Corps, with relocation to Lahr in the southwest of Germany. Down there. Okay. Meanwhile, political machinations and accusations from other NATO nations, not the first nor the last time that happened between the alliance members, raised question marks on Canada's commitment to NATO. It forced the North American country to promise that its presence in Europe, though at the time greatly diminished in West Germany, was to be boosted in other theatres. An air transportable brigade, the 5th Groupe Brigade Mécanisée du Canada, the French side, was to be moved to Norway in case of war. This envisioned deployment was regarded with some skepticism by NATO, doubting Canada's ability to organise such an airlift in times of conflict. Military exercises in Norway proved that this hunch was correct. Come on, Canada, step it up. There's an old picture. Another change in government saw Canada's armed forces regain some of its strength. It modernised its ageing tank fleet in the 1970s, boosted its military budget from 1984, and by 1988 had finally abandoned the often regarded as doomed from the start Canadian Air Sea Transportable, the CAST Brigade deployment concept to Norway. Fair enough. Canadian troops. This leads us to historical conditions. At the onset of Warno's World War III in Europe, the Canadian 4CMBG in Germany was beefed up, while the 5th GBMC even was redirected to West Germany to serve as reinforcements there. The 1st Canadian Division's headquarters was revived in 1988 to command over these 2 formations. So, what will it actually entail? In 1989, the Canadian forces in Europe were based in Lahr, Baden-Württemberg, very close to the French border with West Germany. Baden-Württemberg? Württemberg? Baden. I think it's Baden rather than Baden. Baden. Württemberg. I was somewhere near that area when I lived in Germany. Anyhow, this formation included the following subordinate units. The 1st Canadian Division, of which only the 4 CMBG as brigade was forward deployed in West Germany. The 1st Canadian Air Division, of which only one wing was pre-positioned in situ, and the local CFB Lahr's protection troops. In case of war, the 1st Canadian Division would have been quickly reinforced by the 5 BGMG, with slower follow-up reinforcements being composed of the Reserve 1 CMGB and the 1st Canadian Air Division with its 2nd wing. The 4 CMBG was pretty heavily mechanised infantry brigade, while its cousin, the 5 BGMG, was much lighter, fielding the rather inadequate Cougar fire support vehicle. In reality, a mere training vehicle some politician thought could be repurposed as a light tank for budgetary reasons. While the 1st Canadian Division had dedicated headquarters units, the division itself was cobbled together of 2 independent brigades with hardly any organic divisional assets or supporting arms. This made the 1st Canadian Division very strong in certain aspects, but lacking units in key areas. Lots of troops there. Historically, the 1st Canadian Division fell under Southag command, thus part of the US hierarchy. However, in Warno's March to War timeline, the defunct Southag command is resurrected before hostilities break out, so the Canadian Forces Europe, being positioned to the very south of West Germany, plus being extremely close to the French border, are reorganised under Southag, and thus French command, in time to meet the invading Warsaw Pact forces. So, what does it look like in-game? How will the 1st Canadian Division look? Well, note the new units will as ever be italic and bolded, but I will mention them as I talk for those who aren't looking at the screen. So, logistics is a pretty good category for the 1st Canadian Division. I'm surprised by that. I thought this was going to be a bad category, but these include command units such as the ILTIS Command and the M577 Command. And support units are the standard FOB plus the tracked M548A2, the Mancat 6x6, and the new MLVW wheeled supply vehicle. A few CH-147 Canadian designation for the Chinook supply helos are also deployed. That must be the new truck. Infantry, a very strong category, with the Canadian infantry following their parent brigade in terms of firepower and mobility. This means squads are divided among the 4 CMBG's heavy infantry mechanised squads, with M113s, the 5 BGMC's light motorised ones in Grizzlies, and the 1 CM, or the 1st CMBG's reserve units again in the M113. Mechanised infantry come in either the new MLVW trucks or the M113A1 APCs. Mech rifles are in 8 strong, fielding the C7A1 Canadian designation for the M16 and 2 C9s, the Mini-Me, and 1 SRAW, aka the Carl Gustav. Mech rifles, C6 variant, 1 out of the 3 cards, swaps out one of the C7A1s for a C6, which is a MAG light machine gun. Okay, so just a rebranding of stuff that's already there. Then there's the Mech Rifles Leader, which are an even bigger 12-man strong squad, fielding the C1 SMG, which are Sterlings, the C7A1 and 1 SRAW, plus smoke grenades. And then finally, the Mech CP Escort squads are the same size, but field the C1 SMG, the C7A1, and 1 C6 plus SRAW. Okay. There's a lot of codes in this. Motorised infantry squads are all 6 strong and come in the MLVW trucks or the new Grizzly APC. The Mott Rifle squads carry the C7A1 and 1 C9 plus the SRAW L, which is the Law. Okay, so this is the Law instead of the Carl Gustav. One of the Mott Rifles, CG variant, out of 3. one Mott Rifle's CG variant out of 3 instead fields the C1, C7A1, and an SRAW-M, which is the Carl Gustav. This is very confusing. There is also a rare Grizzly Command Escort added to the division as March to War weapon system. This particular unit only entered service officially in 1992, but was field tested since 1988. The weapon is a French-Canadian Eric's ATGM, packing lots of punch, but has a paltry 750 meter range. Well, that's useless. This means the new Mott Rifles Eric's will carry the C1 SMG, the C7A1, and the Eric's ATGM. This weapon will also be retrofitted at Southag's release to the already in-game French Paramarine squads of the 11E Division parachutists. The 8th E RPIMA were the ones who tested the weapon system in the first place. So lastly, the new Grizzly is a VAB-like wheeled amphibious capable APC with a turret equipped with a 7.62mm and one 12.7mm machine gun. Reserve infantry deployed in either the MLVW truck or the M113A1 APC receive the reservist trait. So reserve squads are 10 strong with the C1 SMG, the C1 assault rifle, the Canadian designation for the FN FAL, and the C2 LMG, meaning the FALO, plus the SRAW-L, which is the law. Then the reserve leader are 8 strong command squads with the C1 SMG, the C1 assault rifle, and the C5 LMG, the good old World War II era M1919, and the SRAW-M, which is the Carl Gustav. Combat engineers come in Iltis Jeeps, the MLVW trucks, the M113A1 APCs, or engineers' own new M113A1 dozer with a front blade. Pioneers are 9-man squads with a C7A1 assault rifle, 2 C9 LMGs, plus satchel charges. The Pioneer leader are 5 strong with C7A1 assault rifles and 2 C6 LMGs. The Pioneer Flam are 9 strong with C1 SMG, C7A1 assault rifles and 2 C9 LMGs, 1 M2A1-7 flamethrower. Canada, along with France, was one of the few NATO members still known to retain handheld flamethrowers right up to the end of the Cold War. Weapons teams and other support units include the M2HB 12.7mm in great numbers. The Canadians love to deploy this heavy machine gun. The ITO and the TOW ATGMs. The new CFMP are a 4-strong military police squad with C1 SMGs driving the Cook V, or the new Cook V CFMP with military police trait. And finally, the new Tank Hunter squads are 6 strong, fielding the C1 SMG, the C7A1, and 2 SRAW-Ms, aka 2 Carl Gustavs. And there's a lovely picture of them all. So, what about artillery tab? So, mediocre. As briefly mentioned, the 1st Canadian Division has no divisional organic assets, and this is reflected in support arms. Nowhere is it as painfully visible as the artillery category. With fewer battalions, no heavy pieces, no self-propelled mortars, etc. What can you expect? Well, the C381mm, which is the British L16 mortar, the M114 155mm towed artillery, as also seen with the Dutch, and the ubiquitous M109A1 155mm, so nothing too special there. A good category, though on the light side, Canada's main battle tank in the late Cold War was the new Leopard C1, a West German-made Leopard 1A3 locally upgraded with better fire control systems. Although lightly armoured, the tank gun is accurate at 2275 meters. Playing in the same league as a Belgian Leopard 1A5BE, it will come in regular and command variants. The new Cougar is Canada's light tank, or more accurately a fire support vehicle. It is basically a VAB with a Scorpion's reconnaissance tank, low pressure, 76mm turret slapped on top of it. It will also be available in regular and command variants. As a light missile tank destroyer, Canada fields the M151A2 ITO, as well as the new M113 TUA for the TOW under armour. Although physically different, this unit has the same performance as the M901 ITW, with the TOW 2 mounted on an M113 chassis, but less armoured. That was a mouthful. So, Reconnaissance. While the division did not have dedicated recon battalion, the 1st Canadian Division does feature a number of recon units. Infantry recon can be either deployed in the ILTIS or the CH-136, being the Canadian designation for the Kiowa, as transports, and they include the 2-man sniper team with the FAL scope and the L96A1 sniper rifle, a 3-man scout squad with SMGs and an SRAW-L, which is also known as the LAW, and a 3-man scout squad GSR with the same equipment plus a ground surveillance radar tray. The only dedicated ground recon vehicle is the new M113 Lynx, a Canadian variant of the Dutch M113 C&V, but with an M2HB HMG instead of a 20mm autocannon, so a pretty big downgrade. Aerial reconnaissance is performed by unarmed CH-136 and CH-136 Mini TAT with a 7.62mm machine gun, and the CL-89 drone comes with a UAV tray. Anti-air. Once more, due to the conditions of the divisional assets, no organic anti-air battalion is present. However, the Canadians have some air defence aces up their sleeve. This results in a decent category thanks to the number of slots and their cost, with some unusual and interesting choices. This includes the Blowpipe and Javelin manpad teams. The latter option only arrived in 1989, so will be available sparingly. On the other hand, the stocks of the Blowpipe were plenty, and the crafty Canadians saw an opportunity and bolted them to their transports to increase their mobile anti-air firepower. This resulted in the new Cook V Blowpipe. Finally, Canada's trademark late Cold War vehicle is the new ADATS, Air Defense Anti-Tank System. This unit was a private Swiss-American venture only used by the Canadian Armed Forces. While tested by the US, it was never approved. Essentially, this unit is an M113 sporting a turret armed with missiles both in an ATGM role, slightly inferior to the TOW-2, and also SAM, a bit better than the OSA AKM. Therefore, for the same price and slots, you will both have an excellent tank killer and a superior quality air defense unit, with 8 ready-to-fire missiles to engage both ground and air targets. That's going to be a nice unit. The CFB Lars Air Base featured its own air defense units as well. These are used to improve the 1st Canadian Division's anti-air assets. These include a handful of Javelin LML systems, which were tested at LAR, so some of these ended bolted to a new M113 LML for additional anti-air firepower. The base's main defense was provided by the new Oerlikon GDF-005 twin 35mm guns, a more accurate variant of the British Skyguard CV 35mm in-game. There's the ADATS. Nice unit. Anyhow, helicopters. The 1st Canadian Division lacked an attack helicopter battalion. The Canadian Armed Forces didn't have any attack helicopters at all, as the formation was going to be used as the US 7th Corps Reserve. The Canadians would instead rely on the American gunships. Canadians fielded the twin-engine CH-135, American UH-1N, a solid workhorse which the Royal Canadian Air Force was the designer and main user of the CRVT-7 FAT, which are new in-game anti-tank rockets. Both of these weapons were available at that airbase, so it wouldn't have taken too much time for the Canadian armors to strap the latter rockets onto the first helicopter. Therefore, the division will field the new CH-135 rocket gunships with new anti-tank rockets. And the Americans lend a hand with a small number of the AH-1F TOW Cobra. Okay, Air Tab. One of the strongest categories for this division, with the CFB LAR providing plenty of air support. I hope I'm pronouncing that airfield right. Anyhow, from the mid-1980s, the RCAF had modernized its entire forward deployed first wing with brand new CF-18, Canada's designation for the US F-18. This striking and powerful multi-role aircraft will come in anti-air rocket CRV-7 FAT, HE and cluster loadouts. As is the case with some other NATO members, some older CF-5A, the F-5A Freedom Fighter, already used in-game by the Royal Netherlands Air Force, were retained in storage and will be used for HE and cluster roles. The Canadian Air Base in West Germany also had a few new Silver Star Mark III AT trainers on hand, which could be turned into light close air support aircraft with regular HE rockets. In the March to War timeline, with a hint of techno-thriller vibes, we added the sole ever produced EF-101B Electric Voodoo electronic warfare plane. In WARNO, it was kept in service, plus the RCAF receiving a second example was added. So the aircraft's sole role being unarmed and laden with countermeasures to mess with and disrupt enemy SAMs. So they've added a unit that probably shouldn't be there. There you go. Very pretty aircraft. That's not that last one, obviously. The 1st Canadian Division has its obvious strengths and drawbacks, from its plentiful and very strong infantry and air support to versatile anti-air and light tanks. The battle group clearly lacks in artillery and helicopter gunship support. I know it's still getting a few gunships, courtesy of the Americans. So that's just a reminder of the Southag expansion. We kind of know what's coming. I won't read through that. You can see it there. Until next week, that's all for this week. We'll return next week with Warsaw Pact's Czechoslovakian 1st Tankover Divizii, or 1st Tank Division. I haven't mentioned anything in this dev blog, I'm just scrolling back up, about Nemesis 3. I was expecting them to mention something today. They didn't in the opening, and I missed it, did they? No, I was surprised. I thought they mentioned something about Nemesis 3. I think it's on the horizon. I think it's fair to say that it's probably not a million years away now. And that's all I can say about it for the time being, I guess. But it's coming, for anyone who is wondering. Thanks as ever for watching, and I'll see you all soon.